We don't let people like you touch cars like this. That's what he said to her. 7 minutes later, her husband pulled up in a Rolls-Royce, and the whole dealership froze. Ava didn't walk in like a billionaire's wife. No designer heels. No gold bracelets clinking at her wrist. Just a quiet, composed woman in a white blouse, dark jeans, and calm eyes that had seen the world underestimate her too many times. She stepped through the glass doors of the luxury dealership, and immediately, Kyle, the top salesman, sharp suit, sharper attitude, spotted her. He didn't offer her a smile. He offered her a judgment. "Can I help you?" he asked. Voice flat. Eyes already telling her to leave. Ava paused in front of a Bentley Flying Spur. She looked at it with reverence, like it was art. "I'd like to take a look inside," she said. Kyle chuckled under his breath. "That's a $300. Zero vehicle," he said. "You might want to check the pre-owned section. Something a little more manageable." He smirked, proud of himself. A couple across the showroom glanced over, amused. Ava didn't flinch, but the chill in the room, it deepened. She calmly responded, "I'm not interested in a used car." Kyle leaned in. "We don't let people like you touch cars like this. You can leave now, unless you're buying." That was the moment. That quiet second where the room thought she'd shrink away. Instead, she reached for her phone. No drama. No fight. She typed one line. "It's happening again. Come now." And hit send. 7 minutes passed. Then came the sound deep. Low. Unmistakable. A Rolls-Royce Phantom gliding to a stop outside the showroom. Everyone turned. Doors opened. And out stepped a man in a tailored navy suit. Expression stone cold. He walked through the doors like he owned the place. Because he did. He didn't glance at the cars. He didn't glance at Kyle. He walked straight to the front desk. Pulled out a silver business card. "Marcus Robinson, CEO. I own this entire chain of dealerships." He pointed. "And that woman you just disrespected, that's my wife." The silence was deafening. Before the Bentley. Before the Rolls-Royce. Before her name ever appeared in magazines beside her husband's fortune, Ava was invisible. She grew up in the south side of Chicago. Her mother cleaned houses. Her father never made it past his second job before the third one called. They taught her early. Respect doesn't come with skin. Or silence. Or even kindness. It comes when you stop needing it from the wrong people. As a teenager, Ava worked 2 jobs while attending night school. She studied in laundromats, ate to dinner on buses, and smiled through every customer who handed her money without ever looking her in the eye. She met Marcus when he was nobody, just a kid coding in a borrowed laptop at the library. Their first date, peanut butter sandwiches and window shopping luxury cars, neither of them could pronounce. They made a vow that night. Someday, when everything changed, they'd walk into a dealership and buy the car they wanted, not the one they were offered. Years passed. Marcus built his empire brick by brick: tech startups, real estate, luxury consulting. Ava stood beside him, never behind. She was his partner, his strategist, the fire behind his every move. And yet, no matter how much she grew, how high she climbed, the world still tried to shrink her. A few years ago, a security guard at a gala mistook her for catering staff. Last month, a valet handed her the keys to a Honda Civic someone else drove. And today, Kyle told her to leave. But Ava had learned something far more powerful than anger: Dignity doesn't shout. It waits. And when it speaks, it changes everything. So she didn't argue. Didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to prove she belonged. She just sent one text because her silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And outside, that Rolls-Royce wasn't just a car. It was a promise finally kept. Ava didn't come to the dealership to prove anything. She came because of a promise. One made a long time ago, a cracked sidewalk outside a luxury showroom. They couldn't even afford to step inside. Ava had her arms wrapped around Marcus's, both of them peeking through the glass, laughing like kids at Disneyland. That night, he turned to her, eyes still filled with ambition and hunger. One day, he whispered, "We're not just going to look through the window. We're going to walk in and buy something for the version of us who never had anything." That vow became their secret tradition. Every year on their anniversary, sometimes their birthdays, they gave each other something symbolic. Not always expensive, not always flashy, but always meaningful. A reminder of the road they walked, of what they'd survived. This year, it was her turn. Marcus had just finalized a multi-million-dollar deal. They'd made it through a storm of business betrayals and lawsuits. He was tired, and she knew it. So she told him, "Don't plan anything. Let me do this one. I want to surprise you." Ava spent weeks researching the right car. Not for Marcus's image, but for Marcus himself. Strong, graceful, quiet in its dominance. She narrowed it down to a Bentley Flying Spurligant. Powerful, classic. She called ahead to the dealership, scheduled the visit under her own name. She wanted to experience it on her own terms. No assistance, no press, no fancy entourage, just Ava. Because in her heart, she was still that girl standing outside the glass. She didn't want the showroom treatment. She wanted the truth. And instead, she got it. Not the one she hoped for, but the one that always finds its way to women like her. Disrespect, assumptions, condescension. They didn't recognize her last name, didn't Google her, didn't bother to ask who she was. They just saw what they wanted to see. But Ava didn't walk out of that showroom in shame. She walked out carrying a spark. Because this wasn't just about a car anymore. This was about history. And history was about to walk back through those doors in a Rolls-Royce. Kyle leaned against the sales counter with his arms crossed, watching Ava walk slowly toward the exit. There was a certain smugness in his expressiones, if he'd just protected the showroom from some sort of contamination. He turned to Sandra, the floor manager, and whispered with a laugh. She really thought she was going to test drive a Bentley. Sandra didn't respond. She glanced over at Ava, still calm, still composed, and then back at Kyle. Her silence wasn't disapproval. It was indifference. Ava turned around one last time. "I came here to buy a car," she said softly. "You didn't even ask my name." Kyle scoffed. "Lady, you came in here dressed like a PTA mom and asked to sit in a car worth more than most houses. I've been in sales for 8 years. I know who's serious and who's wasting my time." Then, more softly, just loud enough to sting, "You people never listen." Those 3 words sliced through the air. The room went quiet. Ava didn't flinch. She just looked at him, looked right through him. Sandra stepped in, trying to smooth things over. Her voice robotic. "Ma'am, if you'd like to make an appointment, maybe return with your spouse or..." Ava raised one hand gently. "No yelling. No tears. That won't be necessary." She took one last look at the Bentley, the car she chose, not because it shouted wealth, but because it whispered strength. Then she left. No drama. No scene. Just a quiet woman, walking out with the world watching and judging. But she had already sent the text, and the wheels were already in motion. Kyle leaned over the desk again, laughing to himself. Some people really don't know their place. He muttered. Outside, a faint rumble stirred in the air, a sound too smooth, too deliberate, to be ignored. Engines don't just purr like that unless they belong to power. Kyle barely had time to glance up before the doors opened. The entire showroom turned, and in walked a man whose presence stole every breath from the room. The air changed before he even spoke. The doors hadn't fully swung, closed behind him. And yet, the noise in the showroom phone chatter, keyboard clacking, idle gossip fell into total stillness. Marcus Robinson didn't walk in like a man looking to buy a car. He walked in like a man who owned the ground. He stepped on navy blue tailored suite, Oxford shoes polished to mirror shine. No watch, no flashy chain, just presence. Kyle straightened. He didn't recognize the man, but instinct made him stand a little taller. Customers with that kind of suit didn't show up without an appointment or a purpose. Sir Kyle started, switching instantly into his fake politeness voice. Welcome to Velocity Motors. What brings you in today? Marcus didn't look at him. His eyes scanned the room, ounces low, calculating, and landed briefly on the spot where Ava had stood just minutes ago. Then he turned to the receptionist. Who's the manager on duty today? Sandra stepped forward, hands clasped nervously. That would be me. I'm Sandra, floor manager. Marcus looked her over once calmly. Silently, she felt like she was being measured on a scale invisible to her. Good. We won't need to waste time. Bring me your regional director. And Kyle Benson. Kyle blinked. Me? He tried to laugh, but it landed flat. Sir, what's this about? That's when Marcus finally looked at him. Really looked at him. 7 minutes ago. Your behavior crossed a line. I can't allow. You disrespected a customer. You judged her, dismissed her, and humiliated her. That customer is my wife. Kyle went pale. Sandra's jaw dropped. A sharp inhale caught in her throat. Whispers broke out in the corners of the showroom. Marcus pulled a card from his inner pocket, matte silver, embossed with only 3 words. Marcus Robinson, Chairman, CEO, Velocity Automotive Group. He placed it on the receptionist's desk like a gavel striking a courtroom bench. This isn't just about Ava. It's about the culture you've allowed to fester here. Call your regional director. I'll be waiting in my office upstairs. Yes, that office, the one your team conveniently forgot, belongs to me. He turned and walked away calm. Steady. Unstoppable. Kyle didn't move. He couldn't, because suddenly, everything he thought he understood had flipped. Marcus climbed the glass staircase without a single backward glance. Every step was deliberate. Every stride reminded them this was his house. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence was enough to make people whisper, shift, stand straighter. Because they knew now they had been watched all along. By the time Marcus reached the executive office one, they had all assumed belonged to someone far away. Someone abstract. Sandra and Kyle had already gathered below, stiff with nerves. 10 minutes later, the regional director arrived in a flurry of confusion. He looked at Marcus, recognized him instantly, and went ghost white. Mr. Robinson, I didn't know you were in Los Angeles. Marcus didn't bother sitting. He stood behind the desk, hands folded in front of him like a judge behind the bench. Apparently, no one here knows much of any especially. when it comes to basic human decency. He looked directly at Sandra first. You witnessed what happened. You heard what was said. And you stood silent. Sandra swallowed hard. I didn't want to escalate the situation. No, you wanted to stay comfortable. But comfort is what built this mess. He turned to Kyle. Kyle tried to speak, his voice cracking. Sir, I didn't mean any offense. I thought she was... Exactly. Marcus cut in. You thought... And that thought came with a judgment. That judgment came with disrespect. And that disrespect happened under my roof. The room was dead silent. Marcus reached into the desk drawer. He pulled out 2 sealed envelope zones he had prepared long ago for a moment just like this. He handed them to the regional director. Kyle Benson is terminated. Effective immediately. Sandra Wells is relieved of management duties. She may reapply for an entry-level position after completing mandatory bias and ethics training. If she refuses, she's dismissed as well. Sandra looked like she'd been slapped. Kyle's mouth hung open in disbelief. This is no longer your floor. Marcus said, voice sharp. But even this floor now belongs to the future we should have already built. He looked to the regional director. Effective today. Every dealership in my network will undergo an audit of conduct, diversity practices, and customer treatment. No exceptions. I want real numbers, real stories, and real change. He paused long enough for the weight of the moment to settle. If someone walks into one of my dealerships in jeans and sneakers, they better be treated like royalty until proven otherwise, not the other way around. The regional director nodded quickly, sweat beading at his collar. Marcus looked out the glass wall down to the floor below. Send someone up here who knows how to treat a human being with respect. My wife's ready to test drive her car. Word spread like fire. By the time Marcus descended the staircase again, the entire showroom had changed. Kyle was gone. Sandra had locked herself in the back office. And the staff-free salesperson, every assistant, every technician within earshot of what happened stood unusually still, eyes shifting, back straightened. They hadn't just heard what happened. They watched it. One of the younger sales associates, Jordan, stepped forward nervously. He couldn't have been more than 23. New to the floor, still learning the ropes. He cleared his throat. Sir, I just want to say, we saw everything. And not all of us agree with how things have been run. Marcus nodded once. Simple. Strong. No need to belabor what was already broken. At that moment, the doors opened again. Ava walked back in. No entourage. No security. No loud entrance. Just the same calm woman in the same simple outfit only now. The weight in the room shifted toward her. Not away. The receptionist, who earlier hadn't even made eye contact, stood up as Ava approached. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Welcome back. May I get you a bottle of water while you wait? Ava smiled softly. Not smug. Not vengeful. Just gracious. Thank you. But I won't be waiting long. Jordan stepped forward. I'd be honored to show you the flying spur. Ma'am, I read everything about it engine specs. Safety rating. Even how they stitched the leather by hand. Ava turned to Marcus, who had now walked to her side. She leaned close, voice just loud enough for Jordan to hear. This is what service should feel like. Marcus smiled. Exactly why he's getting promoted. Jordan's eyes widened. White seriously. Effective immediately. Marcus said, shadow Ava through her entire visit. And after that, report directly to me. The room buzzed. Subtle nods. Whispered relief. A culture cracked open. Finally breathing. One of the other customers, the white couple who had chuckled earlier quietly, left without finishing their appointment. The receptionist didn't stop them. And on a bench in the corner, a young black woman sat quietly with her father, watching everything unfold. She leaned in and whispered, "Dad, that woman just changed the whole place." Jordan walked slightly ahead, gesturing gently toward the line of gleaming cars under showroom spotlights. But Ava didn't rush. Each step she took was slow, intentional, not just because she was buying a car, but because for the first time in this space, every step belonged to her. Where she'd once stood ignored, she now moved with invisible red carpet beneath her. Where eyes had once dismissed her, they now followed with respect. The flying spurs over here. "Ma'am," Jordan said, opening the driver's side door with care. "I've already unlocked the interior display settings if you'd like to adjust anything." Ava paused beside the car. She didn't step in right away. Instead, she ran her fingers lightly across the polished hood. The surface reflected the showroom ceiling, but in it, she could almost see herself from years ago. Tired, overlooked, fighting twice as hard to be seen as worthy. She smiled not because of the car, because she remembered that woman, and she had never given up. "Do you want to test drive it?" Jordan asked. Ava nodded slowly. "Yes, but first, I want to sit. Just sit." He opened the door fully. She slid into the seat, hands moving across the wheel. The leather, the wood grain feeling every detail, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Marcus stepped up beside the car, leaning gently on the passenger side door. "You love it." Ava looked up at him, calm and radiant. "I do, but it's not about the car. It's about choosing something without being told I can't." He didn't respond with words, just watched her, pride quietly glowing behind his eyes. Jordan stood respectfully nearby, waiting. Ava glanced around at the other models on the floor, then said, "Actually, I'd like to take my time. I was rushed the last time I came here." Jordan nodded. "Take all the time you need." And she did, not to show them she could, but because she no longer had to. She wasn't proving anything. She was living what they thought she'd never reach. The showroom floor was quiet, but the tension still hummed beneath the surface. Marcus stood near the front desk, not in the shadows this time, but in full view. Employees gathered loosely in a semicircle around him. Salespeople, techs, finance reps, even janitorial staff. Not by order, but by instinct. They could feel it. This was history. Ava remained by the Bentley, still seated inside watching, composed, empowered. She didn't need to speak. Her presence had already rewritten the room. Marcus looked out across his staff eyes, scanning not just for names, but for culture, for character. "I built this company from nothing," he began, "and I did it with people who believe success isn't about appearance, or background, or accents about excellence, integrity, and respect." He let the words settle. Let silence do its job. But somewhere along the way, something poisoned the culture. We started rewarding those who looked the part instead of those who lived the values. He raised his hand and pulled a folded sheet of paper from his inner pocket. "Effective immediately. Every dealership under my brand will undergo full culture audit. Anonymous staff surveys. Mystery shoppers from all walks of life. A zero-tolerance policy for racial profiling. To BS. Or elitism." A few employees nodded. One clapped softly. then another. Every location will also launch a new training protocol developed with real community leaders. Not just PowerPoints. Not just signatures on forms. Real conversations. Real accountability. He paused, eyes sharper now. If you believe that only certain types of people deserve respect, this is your moment to leave. The words hit like a verdict. A young receptionist shifted nervously. A middle-aged service tech crossed his arms, watching Marcus with something like pride. Marcus folded the sheet back into his pocket. This stops today. We will be better. Not because of PR, but because people like my wife still walk into places like this and get treated like ghosts. He stepped back, nodding once, not asking for applause, not needing it. Ava stepped out of the car at that moment, walking toward him not triumphant, but at peace. Marcus extended his hand toward her. She took it, and together, they faced the staff not as victims or owners, but as leaders who had turned pain into policy. The sun had begun to lower behind the Los Angeles skyline as the Rolls-Royce pulled away from the dealership. Ava sat in the passenger seat, window cracked just slightly, wind brushing softly against her cheek. The leather interior smelled like promise and closure. Marcus drove without music. They didn't need sound. The silence between them said enough. After a few minutes, he glanced over. "You okay?" Ava didn't answer right away. She looked ahead, into the orange haze of twilight, and then turned toward him. "I'm not angry," she said. "I thought I would be, but I'm not." Marcus nodded, one hand still resting calmly on the wheel. "I didn't build that dealership for people like Kyle," he said, "but maybe I left the doors open long enough for people like him to believe they belonged." Ava let the words linger. Then she whispered, "You didn't leave the doors open. You just hadn't closed them yet." They drove a little longer in that truth. "Do you remember the first car we bought?" she asked suddenly, a smile curling at her lips. Marcus chuckled. "That beat-up Altima? Had to hit the starter twice and pray." She laughed softly. "You swore it was luxury." "It was," he said, "because you were in it. A beat pest." Then Marcus added, more quietly, "This whole empire doesn't mean a damn thing if I don't use it to fix what's broken." Ava looked at him. "That's the difference. Marcus, most people think power is what you own, but power is what you do when nobody expects you to do anything." They reached a red light. Marcus looked at Hearth, woman who'd been ignored, humiliated, underestimated, and never once let it steal her dignity. He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining with hers. "Thank you for walking back inside." Ava's eyes softened. "We don't walk out. We walk through." And as the light turned green, they drove forward together, not just as husband and wife, not just as survivors of another ugly moment, but as the future moving through a world still catching up to who they already were. They kicked her out without even asking her name. And minutes later, they had to answer to the man who owned the whole empire. But Marcus and Ava didn't just walk away with a car. They walked away with a mission: to rewrite the rules. For everyone. If you believe respect should never depend on appearance, if you've ever been judged too quickly, then share this story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that bell, because here at Undercover Story, we tell the stories that speak and spark change. Your voice matters. Stay powerful. Stay seen.